Feast of Tabernacles, otherwise known as the Feast of Booths, tabernacles and booths being the same thing. It's the seventh and final holy day in the holy year of us, the Israelites of the Bible. It's the grand finale. Okay, and in this video, that's exactly what we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at this holy day called the Feast of Tabernacles. What is it? Where is it mentioned? And what does it mean? What's the meaning? All right. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video. Now, there is a video covering the entire 7 holy days. Okay. You'll find it in one of the reflections videos on this channel, this YouTube channel, this Israel Awake YouTube channel. It's called the overview of the holy days. It's an overview of all 7. All right. Because as individual days, they're all significant in their own right. Okay. But collectively give us the blueprint of the master plan of salvation. So if you haven't already done so, then I would encourage you, perhaps after this video, to go back. Yeah, like I say, you'll find it on this channel. Go back and please take a look at the video, the overview of the holy days, because it will give you a great insight into how they, if you like, all work collectively, what they mean collectively. All right. But as for this video, let's get on with it. Yeah, let's go straight in. So let's go on to some slides that I've prepared earlier. All right, so just bear with me while I get that up on screen. Okay, one moment. All right. Okay, great. Good to go. So, Shalom, welcome, greetings, Israel. If there's anybody from outside of the nation of Israel watching this video, you're most welcome. I hope it edifies you as well. All right. So, let's get on with it. Okay, so as I've said in previous videos, to find a good summary, a listing of the holy days, Leviticus chapter 23 is a great place to go. Yeah, because it starts with the weekly Sabbath and then goes through and explains the 7 annual holy days that the Father commands us to keep. Okay, so let's go straight into it. Feast of Tabernacles then, Leviticus chapter 23. And on screen here, I've got verses 33 to 35. Okay, so verse 33. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles, for 7 days unto the Lord. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. All right. So let's just have a quick look at that. Okay. So if you remember, these, in America, it's called the fall. Over UK, we call it autumn. All right. So these are autumnal feasts. The feast from Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. They all fall within this 7th month. All right, 7th month according to the biblical Hebrew calendar, Israelite calendar, if you like. Okay, where the moons are governed, where the months are governed by the moon. In fact, the very word moon has its origins and gives way to the word month. It's the origin of the word month. Month is derived from moon. There's a history behind that and an etymology behind that I won't necessarily go into now. All right, perhaps another time in another video. Okay, but a month is a moon. Okay, governed by the lunar cycles. Most of your ancient calendars were based on a lunar cycle. Okay, the Hebrew Israelite calendar is based on that premise. Okay, so this is why the Feast of Trumpets, yeah, is a new moon feast, because it happens on the new moon, the beginning of the month. Okay, the beginning of the 7th month. Okay, so this 7th month is 10 days later, is followed by the Day of Atonement. Yeah, and 15 days from the new moon, from the Feast of Trumpets, is the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, now this is a 7-day long feast. This is a joyful time. Yeah, a time for celebration. It brings the holy year, if you like, in terms of the holy days, to a close. It's the grand finale, as I said right at the beginning of this video. Okay. Now, just to give you an idea, for those who keep days of pagan origin like Christmas, well, if you think about what Christmas is for the day, well, imagine Christmas, yeah, but 7 days in a row. That'll give you an idea of how joyous a time this is supposed to be, and is for those who keep it. All right. So actually, far outdoes any pagan Christmas. All right. So on the first day, as we see in verse 35 here, on the first day shall be an holy convocation. So we are commanded to assemble on this first day, yeah, because it's synchronized with the Sabbath day. It's a Sabbath day. Ye shall do no servile work therein. Yeah, no servile work means a day of rest. That's a Sabbath, Shabbat. All right. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 40. And ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. Okay. Now, this type of material that we're seeing here was something that was, available to our ancestors. Yeah. I'm recording this from the UK. These things are not readily available. All right. These things are not readily available. So we don't necessarily get involved in this aspect of it in terms of the palm trees and the boughs of thick trees. It just isn't available. All right. But just to show you what the commandment was originally, yeah, and in the context of the time as well. All right. So we'll, as we go on, things will become clearer, most high willing. All right. So verse 41, and ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. Okay, that's the month we find ourselves in now. Okay, not to be confused with the Gregorian calendar. All right, not to be confused with the Gregorian calendar. Okay, verse 42. Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All right. Now, booths and tabernacles mean exactly the same thing. Okay. It's from the same root word. Okay. In the Hebrew, right? It's interchangeable. It's the same thing. Same root word. Okay. Verse 43. That your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. All right. So we've got clear instructions here. We've got a hint now. He's given us one of the reasons why we do it, why we was commanded to dwell in booths. Yeah. Now, tabernacle booth, the emphasis here is a temporary dwelling. All right. It's a temporary dwelling. Okay. It's not a permanent abode. It's a temporary dwelling en route to a permanent abode. I think it's so important to get that right. For us to get a deeper insight into the meaning of tabernacles, we need to understand what a tabernacle is. And what you're seeing here, and the reason why we had to use palm trees and all the rest of it to make it, it was a temporary dwelling en route to a permanent dwelling. Yeah? Promise of something great to come. Okay? So, with that thought, let's keep going. So let's go over to Deuteronomy chapter 16, I'm going to read verses 13 to 17, see what else we can glean from the scriptures. Verse 13, thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. We're aware of that. After that, thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine. All right. So, in other words, gather your corn, make sure you've gathered your corn and gather your wine, because remember, it's a time of celebration anyway. Yeah. Rejoicing is going to take place. Verse 14, and thou shalt rejoice in thy feast. It's a happy time, you see. Thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite, the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are within thy gates. So everybody, yeah, in your vicinity, yeah, who's on, if you like, in your sphere of influence, okay, are invited and expected to enjoy in the festivities. Okay? Okay, moving on from there. Okay, verse 15. 7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto the Lord thy God, in the place which the Lord shall choose. Okay, now in the scripture, he went on to choose Jerusalem. And of course, if you're in Jerusalem, that's where it would be kept. Clearly, we're not there at the minute. All right. So we keep it where we are. But just to go back to the origin, we're looking back at the scriptures that talk about where this feast first is mentioned. All right. So because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thine increase and in all thine works of thine hands, therefore thou shalt surely rejoice. Absolutely clear that this is a very, very happy, yeah, joyful time. Okay, verse 16. 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose. Okay, in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and in the Feast of Weeks, and in the Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Yeah, verse 16 is very interesting. It's like a summary, right? Because there are 3 occasions when all the males are supposed to assemble. Okay, not to be confused with holy convocations. We're asked to have holy convocations more than these 3. Yeah, for example, Feast of Trumpets, a holy convocation is commanded there. Day of Atonement, holy convocation is commanded there. It's also gathering. This is a special type of gathering. It's a type of gathering for the males, yeah, to come and to make sure that they bring something with them, bring something to the table, if you like, yeah. So verse 16 again, 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, in the feast, that's 1, in the Feast of Weeks, that's 2, Feast of Weeks being the Feast of Pentecost, the day of Pentecost, and in the Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. All right, so nobody was supposed to come empty-handed regarding these. Let's keep going. Leviticus 23, now 42 to 43. He shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths, temporary dwellings, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Okay. Okay. So we see then, for our ancestors who were living in the land, who could gain access to these materials to make these special tabernacles, these booths, all right, there's a lot of emphasis on remaining in temporary dwellings throughout this feast. But why? Yeah. Now, bearing in mind, the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and the New Testament, the Old Testament revealed. Yeah, that's something that I was told many, many years ago when I was a lot younger, and that stuck with me. It's a great way of summarizing the scriptures. Okay, so what is it about dwelling in temporary dwellings, and what do we need to know about that for today? What's it getting at? What's the Father getting at? All right. So let's keep going. Now we've seen already that is already mentioned, and for sure, it was us coming out of Egypt to remind us when our ancestors came out of Egypt, because clearly our ancestors, when they were going through the wilderness, dwelt in tabernacles, dwelt in booths. All right. Okay. But remember, our God is not a random God. Al-Hayam, Yeah, Alahayam Nawa is not random and is not chaotic. Okay, so if you like, he's a multi-dimensional chess player, if you like. Yeah, with strategies and stratagems that are way beyond our understanding, and everything is ordered and makes sense. So even in our ancestors dwelling in booths through the wilderness, it has multi-layered meaning to it. Okay, which line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little in the scriptures, as instructed in the book of Isaiah, chapter 28, verse 10. Yeah, it becomes more and more apparent. So the dwelling in booths then alluded to being the heirs of some promise. Yeah, heirs of the promise. So we're going to dig a little deeper on that. Let me just bring your attention to the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verses 8 to 9. Verse 8. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whether he went. So what we're seeing here is the concept here of Abraham being called to a place, didn't know where he was going, yeah, but knew there was an inheritance, knew there was a promise at the end of it. It would come to something. It wasn't without purpose. It wasn't without meaning. He may not know, he didn't know where he was going, but he knew he was going somewhere to inherit something. All right. So that's why it was by faith. Yeah. If he knew, faith wouldn't be required. Yeah. By faith, verse 8, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance. See, inheritance. So anyway, going down to verse 9. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles. Dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac, his son, and Jacob, his grandson, the heirs with him of the same promise. Akam, brothers, Wa'akwath, and sisters, this is no coincidence. That our great ancestor, Abraham, yeah, Abraham, okay, dwelt in tabernacles, yeah, en route to the promise of the Father of inheritance. It's not a coincidence that he dwelt in tabernacles, and all along we're being asked to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, let's keep going. Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 8. Yeah, so carrying on, verse 12 here. Chapter 12. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. Yeah, verse 2 of Genesis chapter 12, now verse 2. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. Okay, so we're getting some more light on this. Yeah, so we've just come from Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, talking about the inheritance and the promise and how Abraham dwelt in tabernacles. Okay, so I'm going back to Genesis here to look at this in more detail. Okay, so I'll go start from the beginning again. I'll go from verse 1. So verse 1, sorry, I've got it down as 12 there. That was because it's chapter 12, but it ought to say 1. So verse 1, now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house. So he was asked to leave everything and everyone that he knew onto a land that I will show thee. So he didn't know where he was going. He had to trust. He had to have faith in the Father, yeah, in the Most High. All right, yeah, the Alahayam of Yasharallah. Yeah, the God of Israel. You had to have faith, which is why Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, spoke of him having faith in doing this. Yeah, verse 2. And I will make of thee a great nation. Now here comes the promise. And I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 3. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Verse 4. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram, remember whose name was later changed to Abraham. Yeah, Abraham. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Yeah, so 75 years old at this point. That's fine. And Abram took Sarai, who later would be called Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. Yeah, going into the land of Canaan, which we know later on down the line, yeah, would become the land of Israel. Okay, let's go. Verse 6. And Abram passed through the land onto the place of Shechem, onto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. Okay. Verse 7. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. The promise. And there builded he an altar unto Yahweh, the Lord, who appeared unto him. Verse 8. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, temporary dwelling, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east, and there he builded an altar unto the Lord, that's Yahweh in the original Hebrew, and called upon the name of the Lord, the name of Yahweh in the original Paleo Hebrew. Let's keep digging to see what else we can glean from the Holy Scriptures. Let's go over to Exodus chapter 25, verses 8 to 9. Verse 8. And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. Now, I bring this to your attention because we've just come from looking at Abraham, about to inherit, his inheritance. Yeah, en route to the promise. Yeah, the promised land. Yeah, in tabernacles and in tents, temporary dwellings. Here, lest we forget, even though we in Israel were dwelling in tabernacles, yeah, Yahweh himself, okay, also made a point of dwelling in a tabernacle symbolically amongst us. Now, as I say, Yahweh is no random God. Okay? If he's asking us to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, there's a reason for that. If he himself commanded a tabernacle to be erected in the camp, yeah, the tent of meeting, the tent of testimony, okay, there's a reason for that. And they're not disconnected. Okay, these reasons are not disconnected. Okay, Exodus 25, 8 to 9. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Yeah, look at verse 9. According to all that I show thee, after the pattern of the tabernacle, and the pattern of all the instruments thereof, even so shall he make it. So the Father gave very precise, detailed instructions, commandments as to how to go about, yeah, making the tabernacle, yeah, and all the instruments associated with it. All right, there's a reason for that. Okay, and we'll find out later on. It was because it had to be accurate, because it was a replica of on high. Let's keep going. Let's go over to the book of Numbers. I'm going to put up Numbers chapter 9, verse 15 to 17. Verse 15. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, so remember, it's given instructions as to how to make this tabernacle that he is going to use to dwell amongst our ancestors. Yeah. And this tabernacle clearly been a replica of a more superior tabernacle, Mashamayam, in heaven. But let's read verse 15. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. Okay, testimony means a solemn statement. Okay, a solemn statement. Okay, like a sworn statement, like an affidavit. These are linked words. Yeah, asseverations. These are all linked words. Okay, but a major statement is a testimony. Okay? The tent of the testimony, and at even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until the morning. So something rather supernatural occurring here with the tabernacle. Yeah, the tent of the testimony, that is, the one that, if you like, that the Most High himself is supposed to abide in, at least symbolically. Verse 15 again. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. Yeah. And at even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until the morning. So by day, there was a cloud covering the tent of testimony. Yeah, which is another term for this particular tabernacle. And by night, fire. So there's something about, there's a symbolism around this tabernacle then. We can see it's, already, we can see that it's an indication of an inheritance, a promise. Okay? We see here it's also an indication of, if you like, the presence of the Most High. Okay? Because that's what we're doing here. We're looking into the scriptures to see what else we can learn about the meaning of tabernacle. Yeah? Because by doing so, we'll get a better insight into the Feast of Tabernacles itself. That's the purpose. That's the point. That's what we're doing here. All right? So let's keep doing that. Let's keep finding out what we can learn. Okay, so verse 15, we've just read that. So moving on to verse 16. So it was always. Yeah, so it was always. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. Okay, if you can picture that. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 17. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed. And in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents, their temporary dwellings. Let's have a look at that again. Okay, so what we're getting here is a deeper insight into the journeying of our ancestors through the wilderness. It was accompanied by supernatural events. It was an ongoing supernatural event that was guiding them through the wilderness. Okay, a cloud above, over the covered the tabernacle, yeah, the tent of testimony by day, and then by night, when it was dark, it would be a fire, a supernatural fire by night to light up the way. Yeah, but whenever the cloud, so as we see in verse 17, whenever it's just stayed, so if it wasn't lifted up, it just stayed, then our ancestors went nowhere. They would stay. They wouldn't move on. And sometimes it would be for a long time. There's actually reference in the scripture that sometimes it could even be a year or so. Right? Now we know it took 40 years, but sometimes we don't appreciate. Sometimes they had to stay put, maybe for a year or so. All right? Maybe another time we'll look into that. Okay, because there's scriptures that reveal that. So we see that this tabernacle, all right, well, not only represented the if you like, the presence of the Most High, it also was a guiding force. Yeah, it helped to bring about an instruction as to when we were supposed to move on and when we were supposed to stay. Yeah, in conjunction with these supernatural signs of the cloud covering it by day and the night, and the fire by night. Digging. All right. So we look at this over in Acts, the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 44. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness. That's the tent of testimony. Yeah. Yeah, because a witness and testimony are also synonymous. All right. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses, that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen. So it was very important that it had to be made exactly as the Father had commanded. There's a reason for that. It was a replica. Get the dimensions wrong, get the instructions, disobey the instructions, then it wouldn't be the replica. Yeah, it wouldn't be the perfect reflection of what it was supposed to allude to. Okay, and we'll see that will become clearer later as we move through this video. Okay, so very clear here. I'll say it again. Let's read it again. Verse 34. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses, that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen. So he wasn't supposed to make any of it up. Yeah, he wasn't supposed to lean on his own understanding regarding this, but make it exactly as he had been shown. Okay. Okay. I bring you now to the book of Matthew. And I'm going to start with chapter 16, verse 28. Now, some of you who know your chapters and verses might think, well, what am I doing going here? Yeah. Well, I want to bring your mind to something, bring your attention to something that I've noticed a lot of people miss. All right. Not everyone, but a lot of people do miss this. So I think now's a great time to bring this out. In verse 28, it reads, Verily I say unto you, now this is the words of Yahushua, yeah, aka Jesus. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now this verse actually has been a stumbling block for many. Why? Because we're waiting. Today, we're waiting to see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And yet this was written approximately circa 2,000 years ago. Yeah? This event, should I say, is, 2,000 years ago. Yeah, approximately. So how could there be some standing there which didn't die until they see that? That would mean there was some standing there for a lot of people. Yeah, this is the complication for a lot of people and the difficulty with this verse. That would mean that there would be someone who was standing there back then who was still alive today, awaiting the coming of the Son of Man. Yeah. So, for that reason, a lot of people have struggled with this verse. However, this verse is the end of chapter 16. Now, actually, that being the end of a chapter is a bit, how should I say, it's not necessarily how it was in the original manuscript, because you continue the read. It flows from chapter 16, verse 28, straight into chapter 17, yeah, and verse 1. So you don't stop this and then think of chapter 17 as something brand new. It's a continuation. Let's have a look, and you'll see the point that's been brought out here. Matthew chapter 16, verse 28. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Okay, so straight into Matthew chapter 17 now, which follows. And after 6 days, yeah, after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into an high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. What's going on here? Brothers and sisters, Akiam wa Akwath. This transfiguration is a demonstration of Yahushua showing Peter, James, and John, yeah, Yahushua. This is showing them Yahushua coming in his kingdom. Therefore, verse 28 stands. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death. You see, Peter, James, and John did not die until they had seen this. In fact, 6 days after being told that there was some standing there that would not see death, yeah, not taste of death, not see death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his glory, it only was 6 days later that Peter, James, and John saw this. It was a glimpse, if you like, into the future, what was coming. Let's go further, yeah? So we've just read Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 to 2. Let's go to verse 3. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias, which is Elijah, yeah, talking with him. But this is going to happen in the kingdom. It's not happened, it wasn't happening right there and then, because Moses and Elijah at this point were asleep. Remember, you've got to do line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. The dead in Christ do not rise to meet with Christ until that seventh trumpet blows. Yeah, we know that from the scriptures. I mentioned that in previous videos. I won't necessarily go there now. Okay? So the seventh trumpet hadn't blown at this point. As a matter of fact, of today, we're awaiting the blowing of the seventh trumpet. It didn't happen back then. We're still waiting for it now. All right? So verse 3, and behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. This is clearly then a picture of what was to come, a picture of the kingdom. Right? Now, here's something interesting. So this, you know, let me just get rid of verse 4 for a minute. All right? This is some sight to behold. Yeah, they've just seen the Messiah just transfigure himself. Let me go back a bit, actually. All right. So let's have a look at chapter 17, verse 1 again. And after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. Changed. Yeah, changed. And his face did shine as the sun. Have you tried looking up at the sun recently? All right. It's a dangerous thing to look up at the sun. It's so bright, it could blind you, right? Yeah? There's a reason why people put sunglasses on and all the rest of it. Yeah, we know this. Yeah, it's saying here that his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. Yeah, very radiant countenance. Okay, this is something to behold. Okay, and behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah. So get the picture. He's changed. Then Moses and Elijah appear. Okay, and then what does Peter say? What's the first thing that comes to Peter's mind? Let's have a look. Verse 4. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. It is good for us to be here. Yeah, he's excited. Look at it. He's excited. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 what? 3 tabernacles. One for thee, that's one for you, Yahushai, one for Moses, and one for Elias. What a thing to think about at a time like this. Why did Peter, yeah, the rock upon which Yahushua would build his church, why would Peter make the association with this transfiguration and the appearance of Moses and Elijah? Why would he make this immediate association with tabernacles? Bearing in mind, we've already seen in the scriptures that tabernacles alludes to inheriting the promise, en route to promise. The very presence of God was the tabernacle, which was the tent of the testimony, the tent of witness. Yeah, what's going on in Peter's mind that makes him think of tabernacles at a time like this? Let's keep going. You see, Yahushua said, there are some standing here who won't die, won't taste death until they see the Son of Man coming with the kingdom. Then Peter, we saw that, and the others, okay, saw this transfiguration, saw Moses and Elijah appear. All right. First thing Peter thinks of is tabernacles. Right. Now, if you follow the holy days, in sequence, starting from Passover, the beginning, if you like, of our journey of salvation, because the journey of salvation starts with the acceptance of the blood of the Lamb. That's the first stage of our journey, right? Without the King of Israel, without accepting that blood, then you're still in your sins, and therefore still under the curses. All right? So we've got to, the sins need to be washed away by the blood of Yahushua. Then you're on your journey. Yeah? But it's not a license to sin. That's why you've got to start to come away and turn your life around, which is what the Feast of Unleavened Bread is all about. And we go through until the whole year of holy days, annual holy days, until you get to the Feast of Tabernacles, the grand finale at the end, representing the kingdom. When you say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, that is what the Feast of Tabernacles is all about. That's why there's so much emphasis on the joyful culmination of these holy days in the 7th one. Remember, 7 being the prophetic symbolic number of completeness. It's complete. Yeah? Remember, we're told to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. That's what we're seeking for. That's what it's all about. We're seeking the kingdom and the righteousness. Yeah? The Feast of Tabernacles. It's all about that. It's all about that. All right? Matthew chapter 25, verse 34. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. This is what we're looking forward to. How joyful is it going to be? Yeah? To hear. Yeah? The king say to those on his right hand, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. This is what we want to hear, brothers and sisters. This is what we want to hear. This is what makes everything that we're going through, everything that we've experienced, worthwhile. This is what it's all about, all right? Okay, you see, the temporary dwelling aspect of the tents of the tabernacles, yeah. Well, the very carnal body that we possess at the moment, this fleshy body itself, is a temporary dwelling. Yeah, we as the remnant of Israel are heirs of the promise. Heirs. We've not yet inherited. We have to endure unto the end. We can fall out even now. That's why we must be watchful and prayerful. Keep the faith and keep the commandments. But all things being well, yeah, then this temporary dwelling will have to give way to the promise. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 50 to 53. Let me read that through now. Verse 50. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, and sleep is called for death, to die. We shall not all sleep, die, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, and we looked at this for the Feast of Trumpets. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Yeah. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. We looked at this. For those who've not yet seen the video on the Feast of Trumpets, I'd encourage you to do so. All right? Because remember, the Feast of Trumpets is the first feast of the 7th month. Okay? On New Moon Day, first day of the month, the 7th month. Okay? But we see it's quite clear. The intention is for us to shed this temporary fleshy dwelling and to put on our body of promise, our eternal body, our immortal body. Because you see, if we are to join with Yahushua and ultimately link back up with the Father for an eternity, that can't be done in this casing. It can't be done in this fleshy temporary dwelling. It's too weak. It decays. It gets damaged. It gets old. It gets weak. It gets tired. It gets hungry. It bleeds, and all the rest of it. Yeah, we need something a lot more superior. We would need to be upgraded. That's exactly, brothers and sisters, what's going to take place. Now, bearing in mind every other biblical prophecy, yeah, which has supposed to have come to pass to date, has done exactly as prophesied. The scriptures has 100% accuracy rate when it comes to prophecy. There is no need, there is no point in doubting the last few that remain, which includes this one. All right, so keep the faith and keep the commandments. Let's keep going. Yeah, so Revelation chapter 20 verse 6. Blessed and holy is he that have part in the first resurrection. That's those who, when the last trumpet sounds, yeah, remember the dead in Christ shall rise first. Okay, and then those of us who are alive that remain shall then be caught up with them. All right, and then together, and then all together we descend. All right, onto the earth. Yeah, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Yeah, it comes from heaven and will be established on the earth. All right. So blessed and holy is he that have part in the first resurrection. All right. And to read more about that, you can see that in First Thessalonians chapter 4, and then from verse 16, I do believe. Yeah. All right. Blessed and holy is he that have part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. But you can't reign nowhere near 1,000 years with the body that you have at the moment. Yeah. You're fortunate if it lasts 100 years, never mind 1,000 years. All right. So we see that. All right. But we see this is the beginnings of this reigning, this sovereignty, this royalty reigning for 1,000 years is part and parcel of the first 1,000 years of the kingdom. All right. When the king comes to establish the kingdom, yeah, the first 1,000 years, that's the millennium, the millennial reign. Okay, this is what we want. We all want to be a part of that, brothers and sisters. We all want to be a part of this millennial reign. All right. Then the enemy will be loose a little while, and then we reign forevermore beyond that. This is the master plan of the Most High that He has revealed in His scriptures. Okay, let's keep going here. Revelations chapter 21, verse 3. Right. So that's yeah. So going on further, yeah. Further into the book of Revelation, we get to chapter 21, verse 3. And have a look here. Yeah. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold the what? Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Do you see that? Do you see that, Israel? And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. Do you see that? Not only does the tabernacle allude to the inheritance of promise, I said earlier that it also alludes to his presence, because we saw him using the tent of testimony as a replica of his presence. It alluded to his presence. And remember, it had to be made exactly according to the instructions that he gave. Why? Because the tabernacle of the tent of the testimony, yeah, that had the ark in it, the ark of the covenant in that dwelt inside, and all the rest of it, yeah, all the holy instruments, yeah, and ornaments, okay, had to be made precisely according to his instructions, because it was a replica of this, of what we're seeing in Revelation 21:3. Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he dwell with them. We see that coming to fruition, yeah? The full manifestation. Brothers and sisters, this is no coincidence that we are being asked to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, and the very tabernacle of God is coming to earth. This is and I'm sure you would agree, that's a joyful, joyful picture, a joyful message, a joyful feast. People have lost this today. And you see, by losing the holy days, we lose the plot. It's not surprising that many people who sincerely think that what they're doing is right, but a lot of people have completely lost the plot. And that's partly because we've lost the holy days. Right? If we kept the holy days, we'd keep the plot, the whole synopsis of the master plan of salvation. Right? Now, What better example can we have? What better standard to follow than the Messiah himself and the disciples? Because they kept the feast. They kept the Feast of Tabernacles. And you don't need to look beyond the scriptures to see that. Let me take you to the book of John, chapter 7. I would encourage you to read the entire chapter. But for the purposes of this video and for time, yeah, we're going to look at verses 2, 8, 10, 14, and perhaps another verse as well. Let's do that. Verse 2. Now the Jews' Feast of Tabernacles was at hand. Yes, it says that in the Bible. It's there. Yeah, John chapter 7 and verse 2. Now, Yahushua actually, listen to what Yahushua said, verse 8. Go ye up unto this feast. He commanded the disciples to go up and keep the feast. Go ye up unto this feast. I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. Now, if you read the whole thing in context, you'll realize that Yahushua had to move strategically. There were people out to get him. So he didn't go up, make a public spectacle of going up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. That's why he told them, guys, you go ahead. Ye go up. Yeah, verse 8. Go ye up unto this feast. I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. He said, it's not my time yet, right? That's what he tells them. Verse 9. But when his brethren were gone up, yeah, then went he also up unto the feast, but not openly, but as it were in secret. It was a strategic move. Yeah, it wasn't his time to go with them. It was his time to go in secret, apart from them. All right? We see that here clearly. Yeah? Let's go on to verse 14. Now, about the midst of the feast, so during the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. Okay? I want to draw your attention. Also, I've got verse 37 here, which I didn't put up top, but I've got verse 37 included here. Verse 37 of John chapter 7. In the last day, that great day of the feast, because remember, the Feast of Tabernacles is 7 days long. So in the last day, that great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried, saying, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. Brothers and sisters, he wasn't standing there with a jug of water and loads of cups, being the waterman. He was making a more spiritual point. If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. Now, notice how he's saying this. These words which are inspired by the Holy Spirit. Yeah? Quadash Raka. Right? The Holy Spirit. Okay? It's not random. In verse 37 it says, in the last day, that great day of the feast, it's making a point, the scripture is making a point of making you know that Yahushua makes this statement on the last day of the feast. So basically, the feast is coming to a grand finale. Yeah? It's the last day of the feast, the great day of the feast. Yeah? At this point, he then exclaims, he then pronounces, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. Why does Yahushua make this statement at the grand finale of the last day of this last holy day of the year? The holy year, the holy year of holy days. There's a reason for that, brothers and sisters. Yeah? Now, and the answer is in the scriptures themselves. Let's take a look. Okay? Last great day of the feast. Revelations. I take you now to Revelation chapter 21, verses 3 to 6. And I heard a great voice out of heaven, saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. Yeah. And he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. We read this verse earlier. And God himself shall be with them and be their God. Yeah. But this time we're going to look at some more verses here. Let's go on to verse 4. Okay. So we see that the tabernacle of God being with men, yeah, is explained further in verse 4. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. This is good news. Good reason to be joyful, which is what we're supposed to be in the Feast of Tabernacles. Verse 4. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death. Don't forget, we'll have our brand new upgraded bodies from mortality to immortality, mortal to immortal. Yeah? Great times ahead. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Right? So this is clearly bringing things to a grand finale here, yeah? This part of Revelations. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. Verse 6. And he said unto me, It is done. You see this finality, this grand finale? It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. Do you see that, brothers and sisters? Did you see that in the scriptures? On the last day, the last great day of the feast, Yahweh Shai shouts out, if there's anybody thirsty, let him come to drink. And then we read on in Revelations, yeah, that when the tabernacle of God is with men, that, yeah, and he wipes away all the sorrow, that the Alpha and Omega will say, I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. Brothers and sisters, the Feast of Tabernacles pictures these events. That's why it's so joyful. It's the celebration of the kingdom of God on earth. Yeah? Malakwath. Yeah? Al-Hayam. Malakwath Al-Hayam. Kingdom of God. All right? That's why it's so joyful. And that's why it's at the end of the Holy Days calendar. It's the grand finale. Yeah? It's what we're seeking. Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness. You see that? It all fits. It brings it all together. Okay? Yahweh Shai kept it. The disciples kept it. Now, if they keep it, who are we to not keep it? All right? In fact, let's look at 1 Peter 2:21. Let's remind ourselves. For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps. He kept the feast. The disciples kept the feast. We ought to keep the feast. All right? And in fact, according to biblical prophecy, all will have to keep the feast in the future anyway. Let's take a look at that. Okay? I'll bring you now. I'm bringing the video to a close now. But, you know, I once asked somebody, a Christian who goes to a Christian church. In fact, it was a Seventh-day Adventist church. I said, when Yahweh Shai comes back, when Jesus comes back, the second coming, where will his feet touch down? And to be fair to the brother, without hesitation, he said, the Mount of Olives. Now, I said, now how do you know that? Because we were having a talk about the Feast of Tabernacles. I said, how did you know that? And he couldn't remember the verse. I said, well, let me help you. It's in Zechariah chapter 14. Okay? And I'll take you there now. Yeah? Regarding the second coming. Zechariah chapter 14. Right? So, second coming, future event. He hasn't come yet. Yeah? There are now, there are false Christs. There are people now coming out claiming to be Christ. The last I heard was somebody in Russia. Literally, I read this a few days back. Yeah? Somebody in Russia claiming to be the returned Christ. Thousands of followers. Before that, it was another guy in an African country, yeah, an actually European in an African country claiming to be the returned Christ. Well, no, that's false anyway, because Yahushua is not a European, yeah. Okay, he's one of the he's an Israelite of the tribe of Judah, yeah. The same people that were taken, some of whom were taken on the slave ships in the transatlantic slave trade. All right, so let's have a look at this. So, verse 3. Then shall this is Zechariah chapter 14, verse 3. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. Okay. Verse 4. And his feet, verse 4, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and on the Mount of Olives, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof. Yeah, toward the east and toward the west. In other words, it's going to split. Cleave towards the east and towards the west. That's opposite directions, so it splits. And there shall be a very great valley. Take a mountain, split it in two, you're going to end up with a valley in between. And half of the mountain shall be moved towards the north, and half of it towards the south. So, major splitting up of this mountain, the Mount of Olives. Okay, but it says that his feet shall stand there. And most people, to be fair, most people in so-called Christendom get that. All right? But let's keep reading in Zechariah chapter 14. Now that we've established that this is a future event, let's fast forward to verse 16. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came up against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year, future event, to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be, verse 17, and it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. Well, this clearly isn't an event that's already happened, because we've never had a moment in history, yeah, where all the families of the earth, yeah, have been commanded to come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, yeah, and those who didn't, for no rain to fall upon them. This has not happened yet. This has not happened yet. All right? It's clearly a future event. Let's keep going. Verse 18. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague. So, yeah, so those who don't come to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, yeah, and no rain falls upon them, and they still are, if you like, rebellious, then there shall be the plague, wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Do you see that? Yeah? Verse 19. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. When Yahushua comes to establish the kingdom, Malakwath Alahayam on earth, all heathen will have to keep the feast, will have to come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, how can the feast be done away with if there's still, if in the future coming up, and we're going by prophecy, not long now, going by prophecy, going by the unfolding and the fulfillment of prophecy that we're seeing unfolding and fulfilling all around us. And that's just the stuff that we know about, never mind what's been hidden. All right? Things are escalating in the world. Even those who don't have scriptures can see that things are escalating in the world. When you're having to use terminology like the new normal, clearly something's happening. All right? So, it's all leading up to this. You see, everything that's happening in the planet today, it's all going somewhere. All right? The Most High will have his way. Okay? So, why would this day be done away with? Only for everybody to have to keep it anyway. It's because it hasn't been done away with. And those who aren't keeping it will be forced to keep it. Yeah? Brothers and sisters, the Feast of Tabernacles. It's on, we're only a few days away from the time of me recording this. All right? It's coming up on Friday, the 2nd of October, in accordance with the Gregorian calendar. Okay? Which is a Sabbath, because we just read already that there's no work being done on that first day. It's a Sabbath. Okay? That's day number 1. Followed by Saturday, the 3rd of October. Yeah? Right through to Thursday, the 8th of October. All right? These are the 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths. Okay? Now, there's many people do it in many different ways. All right? Some literally have tents and go out into their gardens or somewhere and go in tents. Some go to a hotel. Yeah, I've done that in the past. Yeah, gone to a hotel with a group of people and all the rest of it. All right, and some have go to a hotel and then have marquees and all the rest of it. Things are a bit tricky this year. Yeah, what with restrictions on gatherings and all the rest of it, and you don't need me to tell you. Yeah, really tricky. But all right, there's many ways of doing it. Okay. Now, I think regardless, there is no excuse for anybody not to do what you can. All right. If you're not able to do it that way, you can still keep the spirit of this day, of these days, shall I say? Yeah. We all used to, most of us, didn't we? Back in the day, you all used to keep your Christmas and all the rest of it. All right. You can do this. Okay. All right. Now, unfortunately, no, we're not in Israel, and we don't have access to palm trees to make the original tabernacle. Just because you don't have access to that doesn't mean you can just throw the whole days out and say, well, there's no point in me even trying. There's no point in me observing. Yeah? You can keep the Friday, the 2nd, as a Sabbath. Okay? And the following days, be mindful of what the days mean and make that a special effort. Yeah? It's a joyful time. It's a peaceful time. Yeah? Yeah. Have a nice spread. Yeah? Get that bottle of wine, whatever it is your fancy. But let's make it a fun time. Be creative. Make it a fun time. All right. The Father knows your heart. Yeah. He also knows our limitations at this time. All right. He's looking at your heart. He's looking at your intention. All right. Of course, we want to do the best we can do. We want to follow His laws to the absolute T. All right, as much as we can, based on our resources and what's available. All right. Let's keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Right. Let's keep the Feast of Tabernacles, brothers and sisters. If you've got any questions, queries, anything that you're not sure about at all right, please feel free to contact us here at Israel Awake. Okay. The email is on screen, israelawaken7@gmail.com. Okay. Please, let's share this information. Let's share this information far and wide. I invite you to be a co-worker. Okay? You can help by sharing it. Yeah? Sharing this information. Thumbs up, like it. That will help to boost the profile, and that will hopefully help to share it as well. All right? So that we get this information out. All right? Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Yeah? And click on the bell and opt for all notifications to ensure that you do receive all notifications. That way, whenever videos are uploaded on this Israel Awake YouTube channel, you won't miss them. Okay. And I'd like to take this opportunity right here and right now to really give a big shout out to all brothers and sisters in the work, because the harvest of souls is plenty, but the laborers are few. So for those of you who are taking it to that next step, doing what you can to get the word out there. You might be a teacher, you might be doing street work, you might be uploading videos involved in dialogue, debates, yeah, all for the edification of our people, all right, for the edification of the family of God, yeah, so to speak, all right, of Yasharal, okay, then I'm giving you a big shout out and encouragement in that. Yeah, Most High bless you in all your endeavors. Yeah, some people aren't on a screen, but are busy praying and supporting and rooting for what's going on in terms of the awakening of Israel. Even those of you who are not the blood descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but are praying for Israel and support what you see going on in terms of the Father's plan to awaken his people. Yeah? Then may the Father bless you also. Because remember, blessings unto those who would bless Abraham. All right? So blessings unto you. All right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. So as I say, I can be contacted. We can be contacted here at Israel Awake. Yeah, we make ourselves available. So I'll leave it there. Guys, have a fantastic Feast of Tabernacles coming up. All right? Fantastic Feast of Tabernacles coming up. I hope you have a really, really enjoyable time and a really rich, experience celebrating it as well. All right? So with that, I'm going to say Shalom Israel. Okay? Kwam Yasharal.